this language of reconciliation and that we were enemies of God in our minds, and that we were like distant, and we were estranged, we were far from God, we were hostile towards God. And now we've been reconciled to God because of the cross. That peace has been made. You don't need to live very long in this world before you can understand what I'm talking about. I mean, all of us in this room, you have people in your life that maybe you once were friends with them and used to be on good terms with them, but, life happens. There was a misunderstanding, or, maybe he mowed too far over onto your grass, maybe his dog decided you weren't along with the toilet, or whatever. So you kind of take revenge, and then he takes revenge, and then he takes revenge, and next thing you know, you have like an enemy living next door. You know the situation. I mean, or maybe it's even like, hey, this person was my spouse. What did I ever see in him or her, right? Like, how does that work? So glad I'm out of that marriage. Like, we started off friends, but now we've become enemies. We've lost relationship. The harmony of that relationship has been disrupted. And I feel for you if you're the kind of person with lots of broken relationships, like a string of estranged relationships behind you. I mean, some of our students know what it's like to be walking with one group of friends, and you start being foolish or selfish or wrong, and then you end up with like a whole bunch of people who used to be your friends. You're like, I'm breaking up with you. No, I'm breaking up with you. And we do that really well as a culture, don't we? And we don't use words like enemies or hostility, because those are too obvious. We wouldn't talk like that. I mean, we hope that no one's our enemy, but that's how we treat them, right? It's like they're enemies in our minds. It's that we have this tainted perspective. When their name is brought up, we don't have a reaction of like, oh. We have kind of a different reaction. Like if we were to hear something good about them in the newspaper, we'd kind of be upset about it. Well, that's what Paul is developing here. This idea that we kind of broke up with God. I don't know if we passed him a note or what. I don't know if we just dumped him for someone else or how it works, but we're taking someone else to the dance now. We've broken our relationship with him. Something is wrong. Something is out of harmony, disrupted. And see, I get this. I understand this because we feel this, don't we? We feel distance between us and God, and we feel like maybe we've broken up. What Paul is describing is that the cross is this picture of the love of God that brings reconciliation and makes peace and takes people that are enemies of God and hostile towards God, and he repairs the breach, and it's sort of like patching things up. There's this reconciliation that's happening, and things are being put right. And I want to explore a couple ideas around this. This broken relationship, that the cross works reconciliation, and it does so by revealing God's love. And my first thought is that the cross reveals the unexpected object of God's love. Middle schoolers, that's in your notes. The cross reveals the unexpected object of God's love, that there is something about the cross that was shocking. And when we understand this, right, we do get this. The passage we just read says that Jesus is the image of the invisible God. And that word there, that icon, is used in covenant terminology in the ancient world. Like, they didn't have photo IDs back then. Too bad. It'd be kind of cool to see what Jesus looked like on his driver's license, a 16-year-old driver's license. Like, wouldn't you like to see that? We've seen Brad's 16-year-old driver's license, and he's got that rockin' mullet. It's a handsome dude, that Brad Russell. Pretty amazing he landed Amy, isn't it? But what did Jesus look like, pimply and weird? We don't have that. What you get in ancient contracts, at the end of the contract or covenant, you end up with this little piece. It's called the icon. And it describes the two people involved. So like if Robert and I'm picking on Robert, if we were in a covenant together, it would describe the two of us so we would know. And it was, for Robert, it would say, he's tall, he's like 6 foot, 1 inch tall, and he's got dark hair, and he parts it because he's got this color eyes. And for me, it would say, he's sort of like a younger, handsomer Brad Pitt. Striking in his physique and toned, and think of him in perfection, then you'll know how to recognize him. So people would know who I was when I had this contract. And so when it says that Jesus is the image of the invisible God, like Jesus is supposed to represent God. Like if you're wondering what God is like, you look to Jesus. I mean, Jesus said this himself. He says, if you have seen me, you've seen the Father. What's surprising about that is the picture that we get of Jesus is dramatically different from the picture that was being painted about God by the religious authorities in the days of Jesus. I mean, they had this whole system about separation. I mean, at the heart of the Jewish religion at the time is this temple. And this temple is like a symbol of the distance of God from his people. Now, it wasn't always that. It really wasn't. It was meant to be like God dwelling among his people, but now it's sort of become this thing where the distance has been amplified. You've got like you have to come to Jerusalem first, the place the temple is. If you're outside of Jerusalem, you're outside of God, and you come into Jerusalem, meet with God. And then you have this city, and then within that city you have this like temple court. And there's all these rings, or all these barriers. There's like the Gentile court where people like you and I can go. Then there's like the women court. And only Hebrew women are allowed in the women's court. And then, of course, women can't go where the men go, into the Israelite court, because they're not really Israelites, are they? Then you have this other court reserved just for the priests. And within that priest court, you've got these divisions of the holy place and the most holy place. And in the most holy place, where like the presence of God physically dwells, it's like this huge curtain. This barrier between us and God. And that place is only reserved for the high priest at certain times of the year. And all these barriers, all these things, there's all this distance, these concentric areas of barrier between God and his people. And the religious leaders of the day, they amplified this distance, and they magnified this distance, they explored this, and they painted this picture of God who was all righteousness and no mercy, all holiness and no grace. I mean, it was very clear that God was about God's people, and outsiders, and outcasts, and riffraff, they were not invited to the table. Well, Jesus shows up with this completely new picture of God. He is Emmanuel, God with us. He comes out of the scene and draws close to people. And the people most compelled by Jesus are not the religious types, not the people who you would think, the ones who have it all together and the ones who can go into this inner court in the temple. No, they were the ones who were like the outsiders, on the outskirts of society, the outcasts, the marginalized, the people that everyone else would have disqualified from God's presence because they were sinners. It gives hope to someone like me. I'm jacked up. Like I have problems. I have issues. Right now, I am all hoping that you are approving of me. I'm just going to be honest with you. It's like consuming me right now. There's a part of me that says, hey, this is for God's glory, and you do this to reveal the beauty and love of your God. There's another part of me that says, please accept me. Laugh at my jokes. Tell me I did well when I'm done. Give me an attaboy, a pat on the back. Because I'm broken. I've got this ugly pride. I've got bad habits. I mean, like living with me requires a saint. You don't even know the first thing. I mean, I know you think that I'm just so handsome and charming that it's probably not reasonable, but no, I'll tell you, man, like my wife has to put up with all kinds of weird things that I do. I got all these bad habits, I got all these things. I am messed up. Me of all people should not be invited in the presence of a holy, perfect God. And yet, here's Jesus, who paints this different picture. I'm pretty sure that if Jesus showed up, he might even want to hang out with someone like me. Because that's what he did. He went to the furthest reaches of society, and he found the people that were far from God. And people criticized him for it. Matter of fact, the religious authorities were really upset. They thought that the object of God's love was shocking, that Jesus reached out to those people that were far. That wasn't right. Like, you missed the point. You're not, doing the right thing. And so they criticized Jesus. You're hanging out with sinners. So Jesus, in response to them, told this parable in Luke 15. He told actually 3 parables. We're only going to read the last one. Now, what you need to know about parables is that a parable is not a story. It doesn't function like a story. As a matter of fact, these kind of work like a joke. And there's something unexpected at the end that catches someone off guard. And so when you read a parable, you always need to ask the question, who's getting caught by this? Who is shocked when this, whose jaw hits the floor when we reach the climax and we reach the turn? It's like an M. Night Shyamalan movie, right? I mean, we're all like at the end, we're like, no way, he was dead the whole time. I just ruined it for you. Sorry. Because you can't see that one now. No way. Aliens.